Bonjour, mon cœur. It's your Archon of Wisdom here today on a rainy October day to bring you some news. I think this is going to be a regular format video, so you guys will just see me bipping and bopping, see our little mascot, our lunar moth. But today I wanted to talk to you guys about the current situation unfolding with QTCinderella. I don't think we've ever talked about her on the show so far. But she is... Well, I guess we kind of have adjacently talked about her, because I think we've talked about the Fear End podcast, maybe. So she's on the Fear End podcast with Hassan Piker, Will Neff, the Hassan's boyfriend, Austin show. If you know, you know. But she did a live stream with KDB and Vanilla Mace where I think they were going to play a game together. And they were all three live streaming together. And TLDR, what happened was, I guess QTCinderella has been getting hate lately from her chat, from her fans, about her hanging out with people who may not be super savory, and making statements and stuff like that about hanging out with people that are not super ally-ish, if you guys get me. So while they're waiting for this game to download, she thrusts into a rant. I can only call it that, honestly. Where she goes on this, it's like a 15-minute rant, guys. It's long. You guys can look it up. It's on TikTok. If you guys want to see, the actual clips and stuff. It is a deleted VOD at this point, but you guys can... You're the internet. You can find it. So, I did watch the entire clip. I've watched a couple other things about it. It's just been, all over my timeline. I watched Hassan talk about it as well. We'll get to that. But the main thing is, she went on this huge rant about how she believes that the way to fight bigotry is not by cutting people off, but by being a good example to people, and remaining in their lives and trying to change their hearts with love, etc. That was the main scope of her rant. She also went on to talk about her family as well, and that's something I want to specifically address in a second here. But she went on to talk about her family and her relationship with her family, and how her father is bigoted against her stepbrother, and she still remains in his life, that's still her dad, etc., right? Now, first of all, I want to recognize that this take that she gave, overall, it's terrible. It's honestly a crappy take. It doesn't reflect well. It didn't go over well in the chats. It didn't go over well with Vanilla or Katie, clearly by the way that they reacted in complete terror and silence, in my opinion. But, I just want to say, the way that we handle family and the way that we handle friends is different. It has to be different. Now, let me be specific, because you guys, if you've watched me, you know that I'm not the type of person to let anything slide, even with family. I'll cut you off. I don't care if you're my mom, dad, cousin, sister, whatever. I'll cut you off. If you're wrong enough, if you're bigoted enough, if you're hurting me enough and my community by proxy, because when you hurt me, you hurt my community, in my opinion, right? So I'm not afraid to cut people off. However, I recognize and hold space for people who do not feel like family is a line that they should cross. Now, in acknowledging this, we must acknowledge that QTCinderella comes from a Mormon background. She comes from a Mormon family. I have met lots of Mormons. Mormons are super cool. Most Mormons are the chillest, okay? I will say that just based on personal experience, right? I have nothing against Mormons. However, there are teachings within the Mormon church that echo bigotry and racism. So, we cannot separate these two things. Again, by saying this, we must recognize that, of course, there is a possibility that her family holds these values. This may not reflect her own values. I don't think she's a practicing Mormon. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I don't think she's a practicing Mormon. However, so we must understand that, her family may hold these values, and she may feel that she does not want to cut off her family. That is her dad. That is her mom. That's her family. I understand that. I do. As somebody who has gone through a long, long journey with their family, by way of, racism and bigotry, I understand that. I have a relationship with certain family members that I feel can be helped. I feel like I can, coach them and help them understand my community better. So I do understand that point. However, there are members of my family who I do not have contact with, who will not have contact with me, who will not have access to my life. And that is because they are bigoted. That is because they directly harm myself and people in my community, right? So I do understand, in a way, the point that she is trying to make. It's not a very good point. It's a very privileged point. Now, moving forward real quick, into what Hassan said about the situation. I do see the point of charitability. I do recognize that people can change. He brought up a great point where he brought up I Show Speed. I think that I Show Speed is definitely an example of change. Marginal change based on who that the person is around, right? I Show Speed has come super, super far, super, super long. I actually like the guy now, which is something so crazy that I never thought I would say, personally. I mean, I kind of viewed him as a career grifter, But, so, to speak towards charitability, yes, charitability is important. It is important to be a good example for people. It is important to help people, to coach people, to talk to people as people. However, you cannot sit there and say these blanket statements about bigotry, because unfortunately, that's not how bigotry works. The people who are bigoted, most of the time, do not care that they are bigoted. They know that they are bigoted. For example, my father, who I do not speak to anymore, my father knows he's bigoted, okay? My father understands why it is wrong to be that way. I have spoken to him many, many times. For example, his mother, my grandmother, she doesn't view things in a bigoted way. She's not racist. She's not homophobic. But, my dad is unfortunately extremely bigoted and extremely racist. And he understands why being bigoted and why being racist is wrong, but refuses to change the behavior. And there's no amount of coaching and there's no amount of talking to my father that will get him to understand or unlearn or just stop being bigoted, because unfortunately that's not how it works. Bigots don't have a reason to be bigoted. They're just like that. People who are homophobic or transphobic don't have a reason to be phobic of those things. Not a real reason, right? However, those people still choose to behave that way. And yes, unfortunately, unlike being gay, homosexuales, it is a choice. So, and again, as a person who identifies as trans, non-binary, my dad knows who I am. And my dad still continues to be bigoted and homophobic and transphobic, and continues to make inflammatory statements towards people who are not the same race as him, who are, not straight people. And it creates a very dangerous situation around him and around my family and for me. For example, my grandmother, one summer she said, "Hey, I don't think you should come." I said, "Nana, why do you not think I should come to visit you guys?" She said, "Well, with the election going on with Trump and everything and the tensions, I don't think it would be safe for you to come here in an environment where there is a lot of exposure to people who are bigoted, who are racist, who are homophobic or transphobic. And even though I'm not visibly trans, she still recognized that it wouldn't exactly be safe for me to come visit at that time, right? So she was saying that because she was thinking of my perspective. Even though I'm not visibly trans, sometimes that makes it more hard, because then people around you will feel like they can say inflammatory statements not knowing that you are the person that they're talking about, right? So my dad has no inclination of this because he doesn't care, because he's openly bigoted and homophobic and transphobic to not just me, but people in their community, So moving away from that tangent, I know I kind of got on a little bit of a tangent here. I understand charitability, right? Everything is contextual, and I think the one good thing that QTCinderella said that I can agree with is things are not black and white, right? It is important to not view things as black and white, and this is something that I talk about very often. You guys will hear me talk about things not being black and white on this channel very often, right? And this is because I know, if you guys have seen my Ethel Kane video, I talked about this as well, where it is a privilege to grow up in a progressive family. Not everybody has the ability to grow up in a progressive household with progressive people and exposure to progressive thoughts. I myself came from a society, from a closed group that was not progressive, that was very, very conservative and very, very overbearing about it. So I know it is a privilege to grow up around progression. And I think that is a huge part of this, right? However, it is important to think of things not as black and white, but as gray. Now, the correct way to do that is not the way that she propagated it, I will say. The way that I propagate that idea is through understanding that every situation is different, and every situation requires a different measured response, right? So, for example, my Nana and my grandparents, okay, so my Nana and Papa, they live with my father. I cannot see them because they live with my father. We have a mutual understanding of this and why I refuse to see my father. My grandparents hopefully know, and I know, that there's no hate between the three of us, me, my grandma, and my grandpa, but because of their extenuating circumstance, because of living with my father, that puts a mild block on our relationship, right? So things are contextual in that sense, right? My father is the one I'm mad at, not my grandparents. I'm not trying to hurt my grandparents. I'm not trying to not see my grandparents. I just understand that because of the situation being the way that it is, I have to not see my grandparents as well as my father, right? So I think this is the way to go about things being not black and white. Now, let me take a deep breath. I want to say something really important here, because I'm seeing this around the internet a lot, and I saw Cutie herself talk about this a little bit. When it comes to reading the room, when it comes to reading the situation, reading the vibes, and it comes to being autistic or on the spectrum or having neurodivergence, which impacts your ability to do those things, I do understand this. However, what we're not going to do, and I don't like that she's doing this to herself, is infantilize the idea of autistic people or spectrum disordered people, neurodivergent people, being so unable to notice other people's emotions that they can be in a completely silent room and still be talking on and on and on and on and on and on. Now, yes, I know this does happen on occasion. Yes, I've been through this on occasion as well. However, cutie, it is your responsibility as a 30-something-year-old woman in their journey of neurodivergence to teach yourself the skills that you do not have inherently. Now, hold on. I know that might sound bad. What do I mean by teaching yourself? What I mean by teaching yourself the skills that you're not equipped with is, for example, medication, therapy, exposure to situations within a therapeutic context, talking to friends, talking to family, going out into your resources. I don't know, get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 therapists if you need to, Pookie Pants. But you need to be giving yourself the resources as an adult to function as an adult in the adult world. You cannot go, oh, well, I'm just autistic and I just can't weed a womb and I just have such an issue with weeding a womb. No. That's insulting, first of all, to anyone who's ever had neurodivergence problems and can't read a room. And trust me, I cannot read a room. All right, I'm not the best at it, but I have resources and I have skill sets that allow me to be able to do that. Right? I'm on anxiety meds. I have medication that I'm on that allow me to regulate my system better. I have skill sets that I've learned in therapy that help me to pry into the situation and see how it's going. Because yes, you have to teach yourself, hey, let me be conscious of checking in with neurotypical people on how they're feeling about what I'm saying before I just keep digging a hole that's a massive grave. You know what I mean? So this is what I mean by teaching yourself the skills, right? That is your responsibility as a person. You are no longer a child, and yes, we are all the child deep down inside. We talk about this a lot here, about the child deep down inside, but you have to understand that as an adult in society, yes, you are responsible for these things. Your parents are no longer responsible for teaching you how to navigate the world. That is your responsibility now. So I don't love this infantilization narrative. I don't love the white woman tears that she's putting online in her apology and being like, well, I just can't weed a womb. No. She didn't, my issue is the apology was bad too. I think that Vanilla and Katie B stepping away from her makes sense. I think that maybe everyone stepping away from her makes sense, just because this was such a bad take and the apology was even worse. I mean, there's a straight 5 minutes in that apology where she's facing away from the camera just crying. And I understand you're emotional. Cut that shit. Nobody wants to see your tears. Cut that shit. You hurt your friends. You hurt your friends' community. And you hurt your chat. Don't turn around and cry in the corner. I don't want to see that. That's not helping anything. So in closing, I think that there's a lot to take in. I think that this situation is coming out of nowhere. I saw some other people bringing this up. I don't know why Vanilla Mace is getting all the hate as if she said it from her own mouth, which is not what happened. She really didn't say anything except some uncomfortable, she did say some stuff. Katie is the one that really didn't say anything at all. Katie is silent the whole 15 minutes basically. But Vanilla in the video is trying to give her an out and trying to reform her words in a more educated way that maybe sounds better. And just being generally uncomfortable with what's going on. It's just a terrible situation to put your friends in and be in. So, go watch the video. Go see for yourselves. Let me know. Comment below. If you enjoyed the content, subscribe. I love you. Be kind to animals. Drink your water, for God's sakes. You are crusty lipped. Oh my God. And I love you. Have a good day. Happy Halloween, y'all. Bye.